A lot of people think that Carlton's revival began with that second half. Nick and the players, and we all agreed that we felt just in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the first half we were starting to getting more of the ball. It wasn't showing so much on the scoreboard because we had such a leeway to make up it.
It really started at half-time when Brass, amongst other things, just sort of rammed into us, just play on handball. Look, no, we can't be any worse. We just got to try something, and that's really when it started. Plus Teddy Hopkins.
We seemed to panic a little bit, and looking at the replays over the years, I've noticed that many of our players flew together and spoiled each other, and the ball came to the ground. And this suited the style of game that you were playing at that time, with the handball.
11-9, 75.
We were quite confident we could win it because the second semi-final was, Hawthorn got away from us and we ran them down, and we'd played exceptionally well in the final game against Richmond to get back out, have another go again, and we were quite keen.
I remember thinking at three-quarter time when going out when Allan's team were about 3 or 4 goals in front, I thought, well, what a rotten thing to happen to us. We've won 19 matches, we fell in the semi-final, and is this going to be the day when we lose? But I think the players thought that too. They must have been thinking the same thing, and they dragged a little bit more out in the last quarter.
I remember John saying, well, it's a grand final, we've worked this hard for this long, that if we're going to go down, we ought to go down with a bang. And he was talking in the sense that we might lose the thing. And I remember Scotty, I was captain of the Sky, but Scotty brought the blokes together again, or so they grouped up again, they went away, and he said, what's he talking about losing? He said, we'll win it. And I think Scott set the patterns, as Allan has already mentioned, from the centre bouncers.
Any previous season.
It was a real freak sort of a game, particularly by Carlton. I didn't think the scores were any real indication of the play because I thought they had played us, by many, many goals. I thought we were struggling all day long, and I know the scoreboard only showed, I think, 27 points at the end of the day, but I think that we were probably, say, even a bit blessed to get within that.
We just concentrated mainly on putting our strengths in our forward line, that we had to, just going with one thing. Our defence, we didn't worry as much about our defence, and we just concentrated on trying to kick, a bigger score than Richmond, which probably sounds, an old cliche, but that was the style of play, really, in those eras.
I think that 1972's loss was one of the real driving forces behind our 73 win for a start. I can remember after the game, Paul Sproul saying to me, who incidentally played a fantastic game in 73, said to me, you had your easiest day of your life today. He said there was no known way our players were going to get beaten today. That's the way he felt after the game.
That particular day, Fowler gave me a hard knock in the first quarter early, and whilst I felt I was all right, I know now looking back on it afterwards and after the game that I probably didn't have a good enough liaison between, being the general on the field and my non-playing members off the field, and I didn't realise at the time, and they didn't realise that I'd been probably stunned as much as I was, but I felt that the biggest thing in 73 was the loss of Keogh and Armstrong before I started, and I think as results proved it afterwards that our roving division that year was really horrible on the day.
13-9, 87.
I felt confident. You always feel confident, don't you? I wouldn't say it was a unbelievable, we can't possibly lose sort of super confidence, but sure we were confident. But we recognised that we had to play at our top, things had to go right, we had to try and make them go right and all those sort of things, but you asked the question, yes, we were confident.
The club was terribly close, and I do believe that did help. And also, let's face it, North Melbourne at that stage were only on the come on, and they were inexperienced final players, so that probably helped us a little bit as well.
If you were going for a 2 in a row again, would you, in the second year, if you could, and do it surreptitiously, organise something that would bring the players together, like
like blast the umpires or something like that?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, would you?
Oh, I think you'd have to. I think it'd probably be,
We're not going for 2 in a row, by the way.
No, I realise that.
13-67.
It was magic, it really was.
Has it changed?
Oh, well, first is, you know, first is something special. Not many people in the modern era can claim that joy. Hawthorn 61, Footscray 54, and St Kilda 66, and North Melbourne 75. All the other famous clubs had their go a long while ago at the first. But I can remember going back to the social club afterwards, and I'd been pleasured in grand finals myself before, and I'd been spoiled in that regard. So my greatest pleasure that night was watching the old supporters, you know, 50, 60, and 70-year-olds, just the pleasure. Oh, those people too, but they were just beside themselves, and, you know, they were saying, you know, if I die now, it doesn't matter, sort of thing. It was absolutely magnificent.
The way they played and the way they finished, and they had a smell of the first premiership, and I don't think any side would have stopped them when they saw victory in their grasp, and that was their first premiership, and when you get 18 fellows after the one thing with such an intense desire and coached by Barassi, it's pretty hard to do much about it, and we were whipped, and we had to suffer the disgrace of having people around the club say, I don't think Hawthorn tried. But it certainly enabled us to sow a few seeds for the next year.
To John Kennedy.
To North Melbourne for one hell of a battle.
And we talked about what was said about our team in the 75 grand final. And as one of the ones connected with it, I said I didn't believe what was said, but I could understand it being said because of the way we'd played. And certain of us who had played badly in that 75 grand final did play extremely well in 76 grand final. And I think they were out to vindicate their own honour, as it were, and make sure that those things that were said about them then would not be said about them again.
Hudson fires, won in 1975.
With the side that we had, we did pretty well to get where we got. And I think that we're probably driven by the players' own motivation as much as anything, because of the fact that they wouldn't spoon us the previous year. And I did think that we probably needed a lot of things going for us in the, you know, I just felt that probably we nearly lost the game before it was played by losing Cum, and I thought that he was a very important key man in our side.
I think in 74, well, really, you know, the odds were with Tom's way. I think in 77 the odds were our way, because I really, what Tom said, they did well to get there, and looking at, and in finals you really examine, and you really, just as a player puts in more, a coach does in the finals. And I go along with Tom. I think they did a tremendous effort to nearly win a premiership.
We were close to winning, I suppose, at three-quarter time. You know, and I think that probably a lack of experience by a lot of people around the place probably was an important part of that North Melbourne getting up to draw the match. I can remember I was talking to some player and I looked around and all the staff, the trainers, the committee and everybody were jumping up and patting fellas on the back as though we'd already had it won. And all of a sudden I've had to yell out, you know, more or less, the game's still got 30 minutes to go. And yet, you know, like I didn't even realise it because I was talking to one of the players about something and then looked around, you know, and I really believed...
This is three-quarter time.
This was a three-quarter time, you know, which is a bad time to be doing that, isn't it, really?
First grand final.
In the first grand final of 77.
It was a great year for North Melbourne that year, and it was a great year for football, I feel, for two grand finals of that nature to go around Australia. I really think that was the start of making the grand final even bigger and get towards a stage where it's Australia's premier sporting event, which, you know, it's that close to being.
103.
Well, probably, you know, Hawthorn were the best side on the year. It was interesting to note recently where David Parkin said we stole that. So,
Yes, I thought that was a remarkable comment.
yes, well, obviously, you know, each coach knows his own club better than anyone else, and he probably knows of his own weaknesses, therefore, better than anyone else. We were very disappointed with our showing in the 78 grand final. As it was.
Because you believe that you were the better team?
I believe we could have and should have won.